Dear student, in this lecture, we will continue with the drug discovery and development. So in the previous lecture, we saw how the drug is being discovered and what are the tests being conducted in preclinical trial phase and how investigational new drug application is made at the end of preclinical trial. And now we will see about clinical trials. A clinical trial is a type of research study that is conducted in human volunteers to evaluate the safety and efficacy of new drugs, treatments, medical devices, or diagnostic procedures. So there are four phases in clinical trial. So after approval of investigation new drug, the drug enters phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then after the completion of phase 3, new drug application will be made, and once it is approved, the drug is marketed, and after the drug is being marketed, it enters phase 4 or post-marketing surveillance phase. So apart from the conventional four phases, we have phase 0, which is also called as microdosing study. It's just a preliminary step, to get some basic information about the safety and pharmacokinetic pharmacodynamic parameters of the drug, just to know whether the drug can be forwarded to the other subsequent phases, whether the drug has the favorable pharmacokinetic features and favorable safety and tolerability features, so that it can be further developed into phase 1, 2, 3 and 4 studies. So this preliminary step is called as phase 0. It involves administering subtherapeutic very small quantity of dose to a very small number of people, fewer than 10 people, to determine if the drug is safe for use in humans, and also to gain preliminary information about the pharmacokinetic and dynamic parameters. So this study is conducted in healthy volunteers, and since the dose is very subtherapeutic, the risk of adverse effects is also very low. Phase 1 study, it involves recruitment of healthy volunteers. So here we don't commonly recruit patients, but sometimes when it involves drugs which is intended to treat very serious diseases like cancer or HIV, so in such kind of in such conditions, sometimes patients can also be recruited, and basically it involves 20 to 80 participants. The main objective of phase 1 study is to assess the safety and tolerability. So apart from that, we will be also studying the pharmacokinetic parameters, and at the end of phase 1 study, the maximum tolerated dose is also determined. Here no blinding is done, and the study is open label, it is not blinded. Phase 2 study involves 100 to 500 patients. So the main objective of this study is to assess therapeutic efficacy. So here the patients will be recruited. So the actual patients with diseases for which the drug is going to be used, so those patients will be recruited. And phase 2 study will be determining the dose range and the ceiling effect of the drug. Apart from therapeutic efficacy, the continuation of tolerability and pharmacokinetic studies also continued in phase 2. And most of the time it is a controlled and randomized trial. It can be either blinded or open label. So phase 2 study provide key information on the effectiveness and safety of the drug. Phase 3 studies, they are multicentric, larger studies. So they are mostly randomized double-blinded comparative trials. Almost 500 to 300 patients are recruited. So the indications and guidelines for therapeutic use are finalized in this phase 3. So all those, the effectiveness, the safety, tolerability which have been studied in phase 1 and phase 2 studies will be confirmed here. And at the end of phase 3, new drug application is submitted and for getting the marketing approval. Okay, so after the drug is being marketed, phase 4 study is carried out. It is post-marketing surveillance study. So here we will get additional information about safety and effectiveness of the drug, and also we get to know uncommon or idiosyncratic adverse effects which have been missed in the clinic, the previous phases, because here the drug is going to be used in a wider range of population with so many comorbid conditions. So here you can pick up so many uncommon or rare events which have been missed in the clinical trial in the previous phases. And you also get to know any additional indications, and you can conduct therapeutic trials involving special groups like pregnant women, lactating women, geriatric patients. So this can be done in phase 4 trials. And also you can study modified release dosage forms of the drug, any additional routes of administration, or any fixed dose drug combination. Everything can be tried in phase 4 studies. Okay, so that's all about the phases of clinical trials. So some regulatory guidelines which should be followed while conducting the clinical trials. International Conference on Harmonization, ICH, Good Clinical Practice Guidelines. So these are a set of guidelines which are formulated to be followed while conducting clinical trials. And in India, you have National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research, which is designed by ICMR, and these guidelines has to be followed. And similarly, New Drugs and Clinical Trial Rules 2019. So this is the basic document based on which ICMR has framed guidelines. So these are the guidelines you have to follow while conducting clinical trials. Okay, so these are 4 basic principles of ethics which should be followed while recruiting patients while conducting clinical trials. Autonomy. So this is respecting an individual's freedom to make choice and decisions. Okay, so like while recruiting the patients or participants, they should have the complete autonomy to make decisions. So they should not be forced, and they should be informed about all the benefits and risk, and they should give an informed consent for the participation in the trial. So the autonomy should be respected. And beneficence, the trial should act, or the investigator should act in the best interest of the individual, so providing benefit. So the whatever trial you are designing, it should provide benefit to the participant. And non-maleficence is just do no harm, okay, to the participant. And justice, treating all individuals with fairness, equality, and impartiality. So these are the 4 basic principles of ethics you should follow while conducting clinical trials. So this is the summary of the complete discovery and development. So you can see here during basic research, during the discovery phase, about 10,000 to 25,000 molecules are being tested, and then during the preclinical test, you get only 10 to 20 molecules out of these thousands of molecules. And then while it enters the clinical trial phase, the number of molecules gets reduced, and finally you get one drug which is to be used clinically. And these are the number of years taken for the completion of all the phases of discovery and development. So you can see almost it takes around 12 years for the complete process. And these are the phases of clinical trials. Okay, thank you so much. And these are the references.